Clara had spent nearly 30 years working at Talon Enterprises, a company that had been her second home, her pride, and her life. Her office was a humble one, tucked away in the corner of the building, but it had a view of the bustling streets below, a reminder of the world outside. For the past 5 years, Clara had been the head of the sales department, a role that required a sharp mind and a steady hand. Her colleagues admired her for her dedication and leadership, and over the years, she had mentored many young employees, helping them navigate their careers. But today, everything changed. Clara sat at her desk, reviewing a proposal for a new client, when the door to her office creaked open. Mr. Thompson, the CEO of Talon Enterprises, stood there, his hands clasped behind his back. Clara looked up, a polite smile on her face. She had worked under his leadership for years, and though she didn't always agree with his decisions, she had always respected him. "Clara," Mr. Thompson began, his voice tight and formal. "I need you to come to my office. We need to talk." A knot tightened in Clara's stomach. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, almost cold, made her uneasy. She stood up, smoothing her skirt as she followed him down the long hallway, passing the familiar faces of her colleagues who waved at her as she walked by. Everyone smiled, but no one knew that today, her life was about to change. When they entered his office, Mr. Thompson motioned to the chair across from his desk. Clara sat down, folding her hands in her lap, trying to steady the nerves building in her chest. She had worked for this company for so long. Why did it feel so ominous now? "Clara," Mr. Thompson began again, this time with an air of reluctance. "I've been thinking a lot lately about the direction this company is going. We need to make some tough decisions to stay competitive. And after reviewing the department structure, I've decided it's time for some changes." Clara tilted her head slightly, sensing where this conversation might be headed. "Changes?" she asked, her voice calm, but a slight tremor betrayed her. He cleared his throat and took a deep breath. "Yes. It's nothing personal, Clara, but we need to make space for younger, more energetic employees. The truth is, we're falling behind in adapting to the new market, and we need fresh perspectives. And, well, your age, it's—" Clara's heart skipped a beat, but she remained silent. Age? Was he really doing this? She had dedicated decades of her life to this company. She had helped build it from the ground up, mentored countless young professionals, and yet now, she was being dismissed for the one thing she couldn't control, her age. Mr. Thompson seemed to hesitate, as if waiting for her to say something, but Clara held her ground. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her mind racing. Was this really happening? She had known this day might come, but not like this. "As much as I appreciate your contributions," Mr. Thompson continued, "I think it's time for us to part ways." The words hit Clara like a punch to the gut. Part ways? After all these years, he was going to throw her out like she was no longer valuable? She had given so much of herself to this company, and now, just because of her age, she was expendable. "And just to make this easier for you," Mr. Thompson said, leaning forward, "I've arranged for a little gift. Here." He slid a small envelope across the desk. "A discount certificate for a hearing aid. I thought it might help with, well, keeping up with the new generation of employees." Clara stared at the envelope. She couldn't believe her ears. A hearing aid? Was he mocking her now? The insult stung more than she cared to admit, and yet she managed to remain composed. She was not going to let him see how much this hurt. For a moment, Clara was silent. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in on her. Her mind screamed in disbelief, but she kept her voice steady. "You're firing me because of my age?" Mr. Thompson's face softened, but his words remained unchanged. "It's not personal, Clara. It's just business. We need a younger workforce to keep up with the times." The words cut deeper than she expected. She was being discarded, simply because she had lived long enough to gather experience. How could he not see the value in that? How could he not understand that experience was what made a company thrive? Clara stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "I've given this company my best years," she said, her voice cold now. "But it's clear that my age is more of a problem for you than my work. I'll be leaving, but you won't see the last of me." With that, Clara turned and walked out of the office, her heart heavy with the weight of the betrayal. Her colleagues watched her leave, confusion and concern in their eyes. None of them knew what had just transpired, but they would soon. As Clara walked down the hallway, she caught a glimpse of David, a young employee she had mentored over the years. He had always admired her, and the look on his face as he saw her leave said it all. "Clara," David called out, rushing toward her. "What happened? Are you okay?" Clara looked at him, her eyes betraying her pain. I'm fine, David. Just a little disappointed in the man I thought I knew. David's face flushed with anger. This is wrong. You're the backbone of this company. You've taught us all so much. Without you, this place would fall apart. The words stung, but they also gave Clara a small spark of hope. Maybe she wasn't alone in this. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to take this lying down. As she walked out of the building, her colleagues gathered in small groups, whispering amongst themselves. Clara knew this wasn't over. She wasn't going to let Mr. Thompson get away with this. Clara stood outside the glass doors of Talon Enterprises, her fingers gripped tightly around her purse. The city buzzed around her, a stark contrast to the silence that had settled within her. She had never imagined leaving this building under these circumstances. After all, her career here had been a source of pride. Now, she felt like an outsider in a place that had once been her home. As she walked toward the corner, trying to steady her breath, she heard someone calling her name. David, the young employee she had mentored, was rushing toward her. He had always been one of the good ones, hardworking, bright, and with a quiet respect for her. She could tell by the way his face contorted with anger that he was equally appalled by what had just transpired. Clara, wait, he called out, breathless. He reached her side and stopped, clearly trying to find the right words. I can't believe what just happened. Clara forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I know, David. It's hard to believe, even for me. David frowned deeply. This is ridiculous. You've done so much for this company. He stopped himself, frustrated. You're the heart of the sales department. Without you, we wouldn't have been able to hit our targets, let alone keep the clients we have. You don't deserve this. Clara appreciated the sentiment, but her mind was already spinning. It's not about what I deserve, David. It's about what the company thinks it needs. They want younger faces, more energetic employees. I'm just too old for their vision. David shook his head vehemently. That's absolute nonsense. You're far from too old. You have more energy than half the people in that office. This is about something else. It's about ageism, plain and simple. Clara exhaled sharply. I know that, David. But what can I do about it? David stood still for a moment, his brow furrowed in thought. Then his expression softened, a flicker of resolve in his eyes. We're not going to let them get away with this. Clara raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Listen, he said, lowering his voice, as if afraid someone might overhear. A lot of the team respects you. I'm not the only one who's upset. The others feel the same way. You've been the backbone of this place for so long. We can't let them just throw you out like this. We've got to stand up, and we've got to do it together. Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had always known David to be a man of integrity, but hearing his determination now gave her a sense of purpose she had almost forgotten. You really think there's something we can do? David nodded. Absolutely. We'll stand by you. You've done so much for us over the years, taught us the ropes, showed us how to be better at what we do. We can't let them just erase that history because of their ridiculous idea of what's right. For the first time since the meeting, Clara felt the weight on her shoulders ease, even if just a little. David's words stirred something in her, an old feeling, one she hadn't realized she'd buried deep down, hope. That evening, Clara sat at her kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. The sound of the kettle had faded, and the soft hum of the city outside barely made a sound. Her mind drifted back to the conversation with David. She couldn't shake the thought that, maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this. But what could they do? How could they make Mr. Thompson understand the harm he had caused? The idea of fighting back felt both empowering and terrifying. Clara wasn't one for confrontation. She had always preferred working quietly behind the scenes, leading by example. Yet, the injustice gnawed at her. As Clara pondered, the doorbell rang, pulling her from her thoughts. She stood up, placing the cup on the table, and opened the door. Standing in front of her was Helen, a former colleague who had recently retired but had stayed in touch over the years. Helen had worked with Clara for over 15 years and had always been a staunch ally. Despite the years of separation, their bond remained strong. Clara, dear, I heard the news, Helen said, her voice steady but filled with concern. I knew something had happened when I saw your face earlier. Are you okay? Clara gave her a weary smile. I'm hanging in there, Helen. Just in shock, I suppose. Helen stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She took a seat at the table, looking at Clara with compassion. You've given so much to that company, Clara. To let them treat you like this, it's unforgivable. But you're not alone in this. Clara felt a surge of gratitude for Helen's presence. She had been one of the few who had always fought for fairness in the office, and now it seemed like she was offering Clara the same kind of support. I know, Helen. It's just, I'm not sure what to do about it. I feel powerless. Helen leaned forward, her eyes shining with understanding. Clara, you've got more power than you think. You have experience. You have a voice. And you're not the only one who's been treated unfairly. I've been hearing from some of the other employees, many of them feel the same way. Mr. Thompson is making a huge mistake, and if we all stand together, we can show him that. Clara felt a spark ignite inside her. You really think we can make a difference? Helen nodded firmly. I know we can, but we have to act fast. We have to show the board what a colossal mistake they're making. We need to gather support, rally everyone who believes in fairness, who sees the value in experience. Let's show them what we're made of. Clara's heart began to beat faster. She was ready to fight for what was right, ready to stand alongside those who respected her, who saw the value in experience, in age, in wisdom. Together, they would make Mr. Thompson regret the day he ever doubted her. The next morning, Clara awoke with a newfound sense of purpose. The weight that had burdened her for the last day seemed a little lighter. She had decided, along with David and Helen, that they weren't going to let Mr. Thompson's decision stand. They were going to make him regret his actions. But how? Clara spent the morning in quiet contemplation, drafting emails, making calls, and reaching out to her former colleagues. She had made a list of names, the people who had supported her, the ones who still worked at Talon Enterprises and others who had already left due to similar circumstances. As the hours passed, she began to form a picture of what needed to be done. It wasn't just about her. It was about standing up for the countless others who had been overlooked simply because of their age. The idea of replacing employees based on age wasn't just discriminatory, it was dangerous for the company's future. That afternoon, Clara met with David and Helen at a cafe down the street from the office. Clara walked in first, greeted by the warmth of the place and the soft hum of conversation around her. It felt almost like a world away from the cold, heartless office she had left behind. David was already there, his usual enthusiasm now tempered with a quiet determination. He stood up when he saw Clara, and they exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of what was at stake. Clara, he said as she took a seat, we've got some news. Helen, who had been sitting across from David, gave Clara a reassuring smile. We've been gathering support, talking to some of the team members who are just as upset as we are. We've got a small group of people who are willing to stand with you, people who know just how unfair this is. Clara leaned in, feeling a sense of hope rising in her chest. That's good, David. But we need more than just a few voices. We need a movement. Something that shows Mr. Thompson and the board just how wrong they are. David nodded. I agree. We need to hit them where it hurts, numbers. The company may be small, but it's made up of people who believe in the value of experience and loyalty. We'll make sure the board knows that. Clara took a deep breath. But how? How do we get them to listen? Mr. Thompson doesn't seem to care about loyalty or experience. He wants young, fresh faces. People who will just go along with whatever he says. He thinks he can just discard us. But we've all built this place, and he can't erase that. Helen's gaze sharpened. Exactly. It's not just about getting their attention, it's about showing them the truth. Without the experienced team members, the company will fall apart. It's already happening. Just look at the turnover rate in the last few months. They're hiring young people, sure, but those people are leaving faster than they can hire them. Clara's heart swelled with pride. She knew Helen was right. The experience that the company was losing could not be replaced so easily. The younger employees might bring fresh ideas, but they didn't have the depth of knowledge that came from years of dedication and hard work. What Mr. Thompson was doing was reckless. I think it's time we go public, Clara said, her voice steady. We need to get the message out there, both inside and outside the company. We need to make a statement. Something that shows Mr. Thompson that we will not let his actions slide. David's eyes lit up. What are you thinking? We'll gather signatures from every employee who believes in fairness, from anyone who has been affected by this decision, Clara explained. We'll create a petition, and we'll make sure it gets to the board. If Mr. Thompson wants to get rid of the senior employees, let's show him that those employees are irreplaceable. Helen added, and we'll use the press. We'll get some media attention on the issue. The world needs to see what's going on in there. This isn't just about one company, it's about the larger problem of age discrimination in the workplace. Clara smiled, a slow but determined smile. This was the spark they needed. We'll start organizing this afternoon. We'll gather the support of the employees who want to stand with us. We'll make sure this isn't just a fight for my job. It's a fight for all of us. Later that evening, Clara sat at her kitchen table again, this time with a list of names in front of her. As she began to type the first email to send out, she couldn't help but feel a sense of empowerment. For the first time in days, her thoughts weren't consumed by anger and hurt. She had found something more important than that: purpose. Over the next few days, the plan began to take shape. David and Helen helped her compile a list of employees who might be sympathetic to the cause, and they started sending out emails. Clara's phone buzzed constantly, each notification bringing in new responses. Some were from current employees, others from former colleagues who had left the company. Everyone was shocked and appalled by what had happened to Clara, and many were eager to join the cause. By the end of the week, Clara had a petition ready, signed by over 30 employees from various departments. The message was clear: Talon Enterprises was not a place that stood for ageism, and they would not stand idly by while their colleagues were discarded for being too old. Clara felt a sense of unity that she hadn't felt in years. These people, her colleagues, her friends, were standing with her. And they weren't just fighting for her. They were fighting for the values they had built together: respect, loyalty, and experience. But as the petition grew, so did Mr. Thompson's resolve. He refused to listen to the voices calling for fairness. Instead, he began to accelerate his plan to replace old employees with younger ones. He believed his vision for a youthful, vibrant workforce would propel the company to new heights. Little did he know, his stubbornness was about to lead to his downfall. The battle had only just begun. The following weeks were a whirlwind for Clara. What started as a small act of defiance had grown into a full-scale movement. As more signatures were collected and more voices joined in support, the momentum began to shift. What had once felt like an uphill battle now felt like a tidal wave of energy pushing against the company's decision. Every day, Clara felt more empowered. She no longer thought about the hurtful words Mr. Thompson had said in his office. Instead, her focus was on the future, on the change she could help bring. But there was still much work to be done. Clara had spent the past few days meeting with former colleagues and organizing meetings with some of the company's top clients. She had always been a skilled communicator, and now she used her connections to her advantage. Many clients expressed their surprise at the news of her firing, some even threatening to pull their business if Talon Enterprises didn't reconsider their decision. These were the kind of allies Clara had accumulated over the years, loyal clients who trusted her and knew her worth. One afternoon, as she sipped coffee at her kitchen table, her phone rang. It was Helen. "Clara, we need to talk." Helen's voice was urgent. Clara's heart skipped a beat. "What's going on?" "It's about the petition," Helen continued. "I've heard from a few people that Mr. Thompson is going to try and sweep this under the rug. He's planning to replace more employees this week. He's moving faster than we anticipated." Clara clenched her fists. "He's not backing down, is he?" "No. And there's something else," Helen said, lowering her voice. "There are rumors circulating that he might be working on restructuring the board of directors to make sure no one challenges him." Clara felt a knot in her stomach. Mr. Thompson wasn't just playing with the employees. He was playing with the company's future. He was stacking the deck in his favor, trying to make sure his vision for a younger workforce went unchallenged. But Clara knew better. He couldn't just erase years of loyalty and hard work. The next morning, Clara called David. She needed to make sure they were prepared for whatever came next. "David, what's the latest with the board? Has anyone heard from them?" David's voice crackled through the line. "I've heard a few whispers. It's like they're avoiding the issue altogether. But the clients are starting to take notice. I've had a couple of them tell me they're concerned about the direction the company is heading in." Clara's heart lifted. "That's good. But we can't stop now. We need to keep pushing. If we get the right people involved, maybe we can force the board to listen to us." David paused. "I agree. We can't let Mr. Thompson just bulldoze over us. We've got to show them that Talon's success wasn't just because of his decisions. It was because of the people who've been here for years, people like you." Clara smiled, the familiar warmth spreading through her chest. "Thanks, David. I don't think I could do this without you." As they discussed their next steps, Clara's mind began to formulate a plan. It was clear that going to the board with just the petition wouldn't be enough. They needed a bigger, bolder move, something that would force the board to confront the reality of Mr. Thompson's actions. It was time to take this fight to the press. That afternoon, Clara called a few key journalists she knew from past industry events. She had always been well-connected, and now she would use those connections to shed light on the injustice at Talon Enterprises. One of the reporters, Sarah Martinez, a business journalist for a major local outlet, agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near Clara's apartment. When Clara arrived, Sarah was already seated at a corner table, her laptop open in front of her. Clara took a deep breath before approaching. "Sarah, thank you for meeting with me on such short notice," Clara said as she sat down. Sarah looked up, her eyes sharp. "Clara, I've been hearing a lot about what's been going on over at Talon Enterprises. You don't need to thank me. I've been following this story, and frankly, I think the public has a right to know what's happening inside that company." Clara nodded. "I appreciate that. But what I want you to understand is that this isn't just about me. This is about the hundreds of workers Mr. Thompson is throwing away just because of their age. He's replacing them with younger workers, thinking that's the answer to the company's problems. But it's short-sighted. He's ignoring experience and loyalty, things that have helped build this company into what it is today." Sarah listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "And you think the board isn't aware of this?" Clara shook her head. "I'm certain they know, but they're turning a blind eye. They're more focused on short-term gains than on maintaining the company's long-term health. The fact is, if this continues, Talon Enterprises is going to lose more than just its best employees. It will lose its reputation." Sarah tapped her fingers on the table, clearly intrigued. "What do you want me to do?" Clara's gaze never wavered. "I want you to help me expose what's really happening. I want the public to know that ageism is a problem that's affecting thousands of workers, and it's not something that should be swept under the rug. If we go public with this, it could force the board to take a stand. It might even force Mr. Thompson to step down." Sarah's eyes brightened. "This could be huge, Clara. It could shake up the business world." "I'm counting on that," Clara said, her voice steady. "But I need you to help me make sure this story gets the attention it deserves." A week later, Clara's phone buzzed with an email notification. She opened it and read the subject line. "Breaking news. Company CEO faces backlash for discriminatory age-based firings." Her heart skipped a beat. The story was live. As she scrolled through the article, Clara felt a surge of pride. Sarah had done an incredible job, laying out the facts, speaking to former employees, and highlighting the devastating impact of Mr. Thompson's actions. The article was both powerful and personal, giving a voice to the people who had been ignored. Clara sat back in her chair, a sense of satisfaction settling over her. The world now knew what was happening inside Talon Enterprises. It was only a matter of time before Mr. Thompson would have to face the consequences of his actions. But Clara knew one thing for sure. This battle was far from over, and she was ready to win it. The days following the article's publication were a blur of emotions for Clara. As the news spread, the media picked up the story. Journalists reached out for interviews, social media buzzed with outrage, and the phone calls started pouring in from both clients and former employees who had felt the sting of age discrimination in their own careers. Clara felt a wave of validation for her decision to take action. She was no longer just a former employee of Talon Enterprises. She had become a symbol of resistance, a champion for those who had been unjustly overlooked. But with all the support came an equal measure of backlash. Mr. Thompson was not taking this lying down. It had been 2 days since the article broke, and Clara sat in her apartment, the phone pressed to her ear. Her fingers tapped nervously on the wooden table as she listened to David, who was updating her on the situation. "I've heard from some of the employees inside Talon," David said, his voice tight with frustration. "Mr. Thompson is absolutely furious. He's trying to downplay everything, saying the media is blowing things out of proportion. He even tried to convince the board that the story is just one-sided. But here's the thing. He's losing control." Clara leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "Losing control? How?" David exhaled sharply. "Clients are starting to pull out. Some of the larger ones have put their contracts on hold. They don't want to be associated with a company that's known for discriminating against its employees. And the employees? They're starting to question everything. Some of them have gone to HR to ask for reassurances about their own job security. Others have openly stated they won't work under Thompson anymore." Clara felt a small spark of hope. "That's good, but we need more. The board needs to hear from the outside world, too. They need to see that this is a problem that can't be ignored." David agreed. "I'm already gathering more support from the clients, Clara. I've had some clients tell me they'll be meeting with the board directly. Some are even pushing to have Thompson removed from his position. Clara felt her heart race. This was it, the breaking point. If we can keep the pressure on, David, maybe we can push him out. This is bigger than just us now. It's about the integrity of the company, the culture of respect, and the importance of valuing every employee, no matter their age. The next morning, Clara received an unexpected call. It was from Sarah Martinez, the journalist who had broken the story. Clara, I need to talk to you. We've got a development, and I think you need to be the one to hear it first. Clara's pulse quickened. What's happened? There's an emergency meeting scheduled by the board for later today, Sarah explained. They're bringing in Thompson to discuss the fallout. But here's the kicker. There's pressure from the outside. Multiple clients have started threatening to pull their business if Thompson isn't removed, and word is that the board is taking it seriously. Clara sat up straight, her mind racing. You mean, they might actually do it? They might remove him? Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. It looks like it. They're worried about their reputation. They're worried about the future of the company. And from what I'm hearing, Thompson's behavior is becoming too much of a liability. Clara took a deep breath. This is it. This is our chance. That afternoon, Clara found herself walking into a cafe near her apartment to meet with Helen and David. The three of them had been strategizing for weeks, but now, it felt like everything was coming to a head. Clara sat down with them at a corner table, her hands trembling with both excitement and anxiety. Clara, Helen said, her voice measured. We've done everything we can. The clients are on our side, the media is on our side, and the employees have rallied behind you. This is the final push. We have to make sure the board knows that replacing Thompson is the only option. David nodded. If they don't act now, they risk losing everything. The company's reputation is on the line, and Mr. Thompson is the one holding them back. Clara felt a sense of urgency, but she also knew that this was a delicate moment. They had all come so far, and now it was time to make sure their voices were heard, loud and clear. I'm ready, Clara said quietly. Let's do it. Let's push him out. As the day of the board meeting approached, Clara continued to monitor the situation closely. She stayed in constant contact with David, who was still working behind the scenes to gather more support from clients and employees. Helen, too, remained steadfast, working to amplify their message across social media and ensuring that more people understood the stakes involved. The night before the meeting, Clara sat alone in her apartment, watching the news. It was strange to see her own story on television, to hear her words echoed by journalists across the city. She had never wanted fame. She had only wanted justice. Yet, here she was, a symbol of resistance. But as she watched the anchors report on the growing pressure on Talon Enterprises, Clara couldn't help but feel a twinge of nervousness. Was it too late for Mr. Thompson? Would the board really make the right choice? The next day, Clara got the call she had been waiting for. It was David again. Clara, they did it, David said, his voice almost in disbelief. They removed him. Mr. Thompson's out. The board voted to dismiss him, effective immediately. They said his behavior was damaging the company's future, and they couldn't afford to keep him around. Clara closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. She had done it. They had done it. Mr. Thompson was gone. I knew they'd come through, Clara said, her voice shaky with emotion. Thank you, David. Thank you for everything. David laughed softly, relief in his tone. You don't have to thank me, Clara. This was all you. You started this fight, and you made sure it didn't get swept under the rug. You're the reason Talon Enterprises can now rebuild. The company would move on, just as Clara had known it would. It would rebuild, it would adapt, and it would learn from its mistakes. But for Clara, this victory wasn't just about the company, it was about something deeper. It was about standing up for what was right, about showing that no one, regardless of their age, should be dismissed because of an outdated belief. It was about showing the world that the power of experience and the value of loyalty could never be underestimated. As Clara looked out of her apartment window, watching the city below, she knew that this was just the beginning. A new chapter awaited, not just for Talon Enterprises, but for her as well. And she was ready. The days that followed the removal of Mr. Thompson from his position as CEO of Talon Enterprises were a whirlwind of change. The company, once suffocated under his rigid and misguided vision, began to breathe again. With the support of the board and the clients who had rallied behind Clara's cause, Talon Enterprises started to rebuild, focusing on a more inclusive, fair, and forward-thinking approach to management. As for Clara, she found herself at a crossroads. Her battle had not only saved her career but had also opened up new doors she hadn't considered. She had been offered a position to rejoin the company as a senior advisor, helping to steer the new direction. However, Clara hesitated. She had fought so hard to change the company, but now that it was free from Mr. Thompson's influence, she was torn between returning to the place she had spent decades building or stepping into something entirely new. Something that could take the lessons of the past and build on them in a fresh, exciting way. Clara sat at her kitchen table one afternoon, papers scattered in front of her. She was considering the offer from Talon Enterprises to come back, to help them navigate this new chapter. But she also had an idea for something of her own, a consulting firm that specialized in helping companies develop better, more inclusive practices, based on the experience she had gained through this whole ordeal. As she pondered the future, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Helen. "Clara, are you sitting down?" Helen asked, her voice slightly strained. Clara frowned, immediately concerned. "What's wrong, Helen?" "There's something you need to know," Helen said, lowering her voice. "It's about Mr. Thompson." Clara sat up straight, her curiosity piqued. "What about him? Is he trying to come back or something?" "No, not that," Helen replied. "I just heard from someone on the inside Mr. Thompson is having a rough time. Apparently, the board isn't done with him. He's been trying to find work elsewhere, but no one's hiring him. He's burned too many bridges, and his reputation is, well, it's in tatters." Clara could hear the satisfaction in Helen's voice, and though she understood it, she couldn't help but feel a pang of something else, sympathy? No, it wasn't sympathy. It was a reminder that karma had a way of doing its work. "So, he's been struggling?" Clara asked, her mind processing the information. "Well, he got exactly what he deserved. But you're right. He's no longer our problem." Helen's voice softened. "I think he's learning the hard way, Clara. All that power, all those decisions, and now he's alone, without any real allies. He thought he could replace you and all the others so easily. He didn't realize that it wasn't just about what he wanted, but about the people who made the company work. Now, it's too late for him." Clara paused, staring out the window as the sun began to dip below the horizon. She couldn't help but reflect on the times she had tried to help him, tried to guide him when he first became CEO. He had been eager at first, willing to learn. But over the years, his arrogance had overtaken him, and the man she had once respected became someone she barely recognized. "You know what, Helen?" Clara said with a quiet resolve. "I can't waste my time thinking about him anymore. He made his bed, and now he's lying in it." There was a moment of silence before Helen spoke again. "I agree. But just remember, Clara, karma works in mysterious ways. People like him always seem to get exactly what they deserve. In the end, he might not have been able to replace you, but it looks like he's being replaced in ways he never expected." Weeks passed, and Clara found herself diving deeper into her new venture. The consulting firm she had envisioned began to take shape. With the support of former colleagues and clients who had backed her during the campaign, she was able to secure her first few contracts. It was exhilarating. The freedom to shape the future, to guide companies toward more ethical and inclusive practices, it felt like a new lease on life. But even as Clara thrived in this new chapter, word continued to spread about Mr. Thompson's fall from grace. He struggled to find work, the doors that had once opened to him now firmly closed. His reputation had been irrevocably damaged, and no one in the business world seemed willing to take a chance on him. The man who had once held so much power now found himself isolated and jobless. Then, one afternoon, Clara received a message from Sarah Martinez, the journalist who had helped expose the truth about Mr. Thompson. "Clara, you might want to know this," Sarah wrote. "Mr. Thompson's story is making the rounds now. There's an article coming out about how his treatment of employees, particularly the way he let go of so many seasoned workers in favor of younger hires, has led to not only his downfall but also a significant loss for Talon Enterprises. The company's been forced to reevaluate its leadership structure, and now Thompson's own downfall is being cited as a cautionary tale. It's incredible how fast things have turned around for him, and not in the way he ever expected." Clara felt a small, satisfied smile tug at her lips. She wasn't one to take pleasure in someone's misery, but after everything she had been through, after all the people Mr. Thompson had hurt, this was the justice she had been waiting for. He had gotten exactly what he deserved. Months later, Talon Enterprises had a new CEO, someone who understood the importance of both youth and experience. Under this new leadership, the company began to recover, implementing diversity training, offering more opportunities for senior employees, and creating a more inclusive work environment. Clara had declined the offer to return to the company, preferring instead to focus on her consulting work, but she couldn't help but feel a small sense of pride. She had helped pave the way for the company's future, even if it meant she had to leave it behind. As for Mr. Thompson, his name was now a cautionary tale, a reminder that no one, no matter how powerful, could escape the consequences of their actions forever. He had underestimated the power of loyalty, experience, and respect, and that was something that no amount of youth or energy could ever replace. Clara sat back in her chair one evening, sipping a glass of wine as she looked over her consulting contracts. The future was bright, and it was hers for the taking. She had fought for what was right, and in the end, she had won.